Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today, right here, right now, we have got something that is possibly the biggest Baofeng radio known to mankind. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Baofeng UV-25. It's a very chunky military styled radio, and this one is very unusual. Indeed, it's probably the biggest radio that Baofeng have ever created. And when I agreed to do the review on this one, I didn't realise what I was getting myself into. So many thanks to my friends at baofengradio.com for sending this one over to me. Cheers guys for your support of the channel as always. And as you can see, it's a very, very chunky big radio. In fact, probably big is an understatement. If I just pop it down on the desk a second to put this into some kind of perspective amongst other things, I've got a TID radio TDH3 over here, and I'm going to show you this radio next to the UV-25 to put it all into line. Just check this out. Wow, doesn't that put it into perspective immediately? Look at the little TID radio and the Baofeng UV-25 towering above it there. So that gives you some idea. It's like almost two of that type of radio. This is incredibly large. So for those of you who struggle with little keypads and fiddly little controls and things, this UV-25 might be just what you're after. If you like taking it on a field day, you know you've got big fat fingers like me, and you want a radio that's going to stand up to the rigours of throwing in a backpack. It's probably going to be a little bit more robust than some of the smaller models. At first glance, it certainly seems like it could be. It looks quite well built. It's got a nice feel in the hand. It's got that sort of old school radio type thing. Maybe even looks a bit like a 1990s mobile phone, you know, like the old brick type mobiles and everything. But certainly it does seem to have an air of quite good build quality to it. So when I got this one sent over from baofengradio.com, they asked me which colour I'd like, and I said, oh, I'll have the camo colour if that's okay with you guys. So this is like the greeny black sort of finish, so typical sort of military style. They do also make it in a plain black with a different colour speaker grille, and they also make it in a sort of desert camo colour as well. So the choice is yours for depending on the applications that you're going to use it for. But I quite like this sort of camo green black colour. It's pretty much traditional. I do like the finish on that one as well. But looking around the radio, it certainly looks quite well made, doesn't it really? So how much does this thing weigh? Well, I'm just going to put the scale down on here for a second and just see. So just bear with me 1 sec while I just get it registered on there. And I'm seeing this weighing in at 662 grams with the battery pack and the antenna on there. So, you know, compared to, say, I don't know, the TID radio, let's just pop that one on the scale there. That's only 228 grams. So it's like 3 times heavier than the TID. So as you can tell, it's a radio that's going to be dividing opinions here. Some people are going to love it, some are going to hate it, depending on if you like big, heavy weights in your backpack or you want to take it out for the day. So let's talk about specifications on this radio and what it can do. So Baofeng basically sell this one as a tri-band transceiver. So what that means is it covers basically 136 to 174 megahertz on the VHF range. It covers the higher VHF range of 220 to 260 megahertz on TX and RX. And it also covers the 400 to 480 megahertz range too on TX and RX. So what basically we're saying for amateur radio use is that's covering the 2 meter amateur radio band, the 1.25 meter band, which is available in North America. So that's an interesting one because we don't have access to that here over in Europe. And also it covers the 70 SEMS amateur radio band, which obviously starts at 430 megahertz here in the UK as well. So yeah, it's got quite a good wide coverage. There is also a little bit of a wideband receiver going on in between there, so it can actually receive even higher than that, up to 520 megahertz. And rather unusually, it can also receive between 350 and 390 megahertz too. So some countries do use that as some kind of police or PMR band as well. So it's kind of interesting. There is an FM radio receiver built in here for broadcast stations, and also the NOAA weather alert system, again, which is specific to the United States. 999 memory channels too. Again, no sort of memory bank management. It's just like literally 1,000 channels just one after the other consecutively. I would like to see more sorts of memory bank management on these type of radios. Very few and far between have that feature, but it's always nice to have. You've got 1.77-inch TFT colour display, a 5,200 mAh battery pack. So yeah, nice big battery and all sorts of other features built in there. So basically, it's a very comprehensive radio for the money, and this one runs around the $50 price point as well. So kind of an interesting sort of proposition for the money there, really. So let's take a closer look at some of the features on this radio. Well, you've got this rather nice silver machined volume control knob up here. Very, very nice piece of kit, really. Looks really well made. It's protected by this on top of here as well. To turn the radio on and off, it's very simple. All you do is roll this wheel around here. So if we just roll it, there you go. You see, the radio just starts up like that. So it's a very simple on-off switch with volume control. Just like the old-fashioned radios, nice and easy. For anybody who likes the traditional old-school sort of thing, then this is perfect. And that's a nicely machined part on there as well, really, isn't it? It does feel quite nice. So, yeah, a little bit different from the average. There is no rotary channel VFO stepper, encoder, whatever you want to call it, or channel change. For doing all that kind of thing, you're going to have to go down to this keypad, which brings me down to this bit on the radio here. You've got the up and down keys there for changing through your frequencies. I'll just turn the beep down a bit, this is a bit annoying. As you can see there, you can just like tap these up and down to go through your frequencies on the VFO or your channels, etc. Or you can type the number in on the keypad of the channel number that you want to go to, or direct frequency entry too. So nice and straightforward again. Good backlit keypad there. As you can see, everything's really well laid out. It is really good in the dark as well. So no issues with that whatsoever. So if you've got bigger fingers like me, you don't have any problems hitting double keys or anything like some of these small models, etc. So yeah, it's really, really good. It's a nice chunky sort of keyboard, good feel and everything. Like I say, it's great for out in the field and everything. So if you're operating in dark environments, you'll have no bother at all with that one. This red key here just toggles between the upper and lower VFO. As you can see, I've got the top one set to preset channels that I've pre-programmed in here using Chirp, and the bottom one is VFO mode there. Now at first I didn't know how to change between channel and VFO on the radio, but it is very straightforward. It's this green button over here. What I discovered is, you see it says VFO in the bottom corner there. If we just hold this down for a second on here, it changes to channel, and hold that green one down again for a second, it switches back to VFO mode. It wasn't immediately obvious, I wouldn't have said, because if you just tap it, that goes to menu. But if you hold it down, it toggles between channel and VFO. So that's a good tip, that is, straight away. And one of my friends who's just got this radio said, how do you make it scan? Well, again, it's the hold down of a key. There's a number of secondary features on this keypad down here, which are all labelled like transmit power, step, wide and narrow modulation, etc. And the scan is that little key with the hash on it there that's got the Z symbol, and that means scan. So if we just hold that down for a second, you'll see that the VFO scanner's just kicked in there, and it's got the little symbol up on the display too. So to stop it again, just hold that down. So nice and straightforward. So there are some shortcuts there without going into the other menus, but we'll come back to that in a minute. On the side of the radio, let's have a little look around here. Well, you've got the standard PTT. It's a nice orangey rubberized button there. Good location for it. And there's also 3 programmable keys here, which also come preset with some useful functions. The first one down here, if you just push it down, enables the compulsory flashlight and torch. There you go, look how bright that one is as well. That's a really bright torch. So again, it wouldn't be a Baofeng radio without the torch, would it, guys? So, and if you press it one more time, look at that, it starts flashing too. Wow. So second button up on here toggles FM broadcast band radio, and as you can see there, FM radio has appeared on the screen, so you can type in the frequency of the radio station that you want to listen to. So if there's nothing on the air at all and you want to listen to some FM broadcast radio, you can do that using that button there. Push it again, it goes off. And if you hold it down, it's currently programmed as a squelch monitor, so that releases the squelch, as you can hear there, and the little green lights come up to show we're receiving, and that's what that one does. And finally, this third button along the top of here above the PTT Press it once, it comes up with the pre-programmed NOAA weather channels, which are obviously a lot more use in the United States than they are in the United Kingdom there. Moving to the other side of the radio, you've got the rubberized flap here for the external speaker jack, and more importantly as well, you can program the radio this way using these ports, which are the standard Baofeng type cables, what we call the K-type cable, along with a million other Chinese radios. So very, very easy to program. You can use the Chirp software, and UV-25 is on the supported list of radios for Chirp, so it's very, very easy to get this one up and running or copy your existing data files over to the radio, so no bother at all. But yeah, so that's about it in terms of ports on there. On the rear of the radio, you've got this rather massive battery pack. I think it's 5,200 milliamp battery, so it is going to last a very long time. And in fact, I've had this radio for 2 weeks and I've been chatting on it, testing it out a lot with different radio amateurs around here. And despite giving it loads of hammer, it's been really difficult to make this thing go flat because it's such a big battery pack. So I mean, this is where it wins amongst the standard sort of Baofeng radios and other Chinese radios, because this one has a much better battery. And of course, because it's a larger capacity battery, it does take a fair old time to charge up. Basically, I think it was a leave overnight job because it did take such a long time. It does use USB-C on the battery pack itself, so if we just flip this little rubber port open here, hopefully you guys can see that there. There's a USB-C port on the actual battery itself there, and it will charge from a stock standard USB-C cable like the one that comes with your mobile phone device. So just pop it into here, and there you go. That's the charger going in there. As you can see, there's a little orange light under there which goes green eventually, but like I say, it does take a long time to charge up there. I did some measurements on this, and I think it only charged around 3.54 watts, so as you can see, it's going to take a fair old time to get fully charged up, but it does last and last and last, which was one positive thing. Also notice on the bottom of this battery pack, it is actually screwed to the radio itself there, so you need a screwdriver to take this one off or reassemble it onto there. This gives it a degree of waterproofing as well. In the good old-fashioned sense of military spec radios, well, what do you actually get in the box with this UV-25 if you buy it from baofengradio.com? Well, interestingly enough, you do get quite a few things. Excuse the mess in the box, I've already opened this once, but you do get a rather comprehensive UV-25 instruction manual. And you know, over the years the Chinese have been getting better at these user guides. This one's quite comprehensive. It does take you through all the sections of the radio, and it's really interesting to have a quick read through because it does tell you about all the different functions in the menu system, and so it's maybe worth having a glance through anyway. It is written in quite good English too, so that's quite nice to know. So that's your official manual. You do get a USB-C charge cable there, which, as mentioned, you can use your existing mobile phone chargers if you've got one like that, but you do get one in the box. I did get one with this one. It is the 2-pin Euro one there, which is probably of limited use to me without an adapter in the UK, but I haven't actually bothered with it because, like I say, I do have a mobile phone that uses USB-C charging anyhow, so it's not really been an issue. But you do get the cable and you do get the charger with it there, so I'll just pop them on one side. You get the standard Vox enabled earpiece, the hardwired earpiece, there you go, which you get with most of the Baofeng radios, which is kind of cool. So you get one of those in the box with it. And this one is the biggest disappointment of the lot. It is the stock Baofeng belt clip, and I tell you I'm disappointed because that is not going to hold the weight of this radio. I mean, that's probably the biggest disappointment. It's just a plastic belt clip. I thought there might have been something a little bit more substantial in the box with this one, but if you think of that being attached to the radio, which I haven't bothered doing yet, I will put it on, but it's not going to carry the weight of the radio, and that's probably going to fall straight off a belt or a holster of some sort. You know, it's just really flimsy and not up to the job. There's just those two screws at the top of there, and I'd probably not even bother with it, to be quite honest with you. It's not really a military spec. The rest of the radio, it doesn't match the rest of the radio, if you see what I mean, so that needs some work on that one, so that's probably going to stay where it is, to be quite honest. And also everybody else's favourite, this lanyardy thing, you know, the hand strap thing. It's yeah, very useful for this type of radio, I'd say. No, actually, seriously though, on a serious note, there is this in the box as well. I've taken this one out. You do get two different antennas. This is a tactical military antenna, and it's one of those jobbies that you can bend right over like that. It's the flexible one that we sometimes joke about and call it the tape measure antenna, and this is the one that springs up. It's about just over 14 inches long, I think 14-15 inches maybe, and this comes as an alternative to the other antenna, which I haven't really talked about yet, but this is what they call a gooseneck antenna. This comes with the UV-25, and as you can see there, it's very flexible. Obviously you need to extend it fully to get the best range out of it, but this antenna actually worked better than I thought it would do. I've been using this one on my tests and everything, and it's been surprisingly good at 2 meter band. It's been very good for marine traffic as well and things like that, so it works better than I thought it would do. Now I've seen a few reports on the internet that there's nothing inside this antenna. It's just literally, you know, it's just got this top section on to make it look a bit more exciting, and there's nothing actually inside it. Well, I'm not going to disassemble it, but I understand that it's possibly just for looks really, you know, in the so-called tactical range. But yeah, it certainly is a flexible antenna. You can store it easily, you can bend it around like that and reshape it and everything. So yeah, but that said, it does seem to work quite well. But you also get this if you prefer it as well, which is the tape measure type antenna, as we call it. Again, it can be bent into a number of sections and you can fold it down. You get a little bit of Velcro with it as well, so you can pack it into a bag and hopefully not lose it somewhere. So two different antenna sorts there, and it just snaps back out into position, so that's pretty cool. In my tests I didn't seem to find a lot of difference between the two. They both work quite well, but you've got to remember that this radio is actually an 11 watt radio, and we're going to do some power tests shortly to confirm if that's the case. But whatever antennas you use need to be capable of high power. I mean, the radio has 3 power levels, but it can put out up to 11 watts, which is a fair bit of power really. So you need to make sure the antennas you're using can stand up to that sort of power. Okay, let's talk about screen layout. I don't mind this radio too much. It's a pretty good screen on it. Everything seems pretty well laid out. The frequency display's okay. It's like in a sort of dark blue colour, and this is white, but this is one thing that's annoying me at the moment. And again, you'll see why in a few minutes. But if we just go and press the green button for the menu system, you can see, look, the menu underneath here, everything's in red text, and that makes it really difficult to read. I mean, red on a blue background is probably a big no really. I mean, it might look okay under the studio lighting. Remember, we're indoors and it's night time at the moment when I'm filming this video, but imagine trying to see that outside in daylight. It's almost impossible to see the red text. Baofeng, if you're listening, if you could issue a firmware update and maybe make this text white or allow the user to customize the color, that would be really useful, because you see the text above for the VFO there with the frequency display. That's nice and legible, but the red is really difficult to see on the blue background. But anyway, that's your menu. It's very similar to all of the Baofeng, so I'm not going to go through all the features, but basically you can have the voice prompts, English language, Chinese, etc. And if we just pop through some of these, it's got the usual stuff like frequency steps, channel name or frequency mode, CTCSS, DCS, there's a scrambler built in, carrier operated squelch, timeout, etc. So basically you've got all the features that you will have in the normal UV-5R in there, so not much difference on that score or anything, which is kind of interesting. There's even a Roger beep in there, I believe, somewhere, but I've not even tested that one. But as you can see, I'm struggling a bit with the red text here, and I think you guys probably will do when it's outdoors in bright daylight too. But apart from that, it's a case of, if you want to go through some of these features, these keys down here are probably the most prominent ones. Like for example, TX power. You can just press down the green button, then press 2 on the shortcut for TXP, and that takes you to the TX power. There's high, middle and low power available there. And likewise, if you wanted to change the frequency step on the VFO, press the green key and then press number 1 for step, and it takes you straight to the menu option, which makes it a little bit easier to use as well. But yeah, that text is kind of annoying. So when I was going through these programmable side keys, I found an interesting feature in this radio that it's probably in the user guide somewhere, but it's kind of like hidden away. If we hold down this top button here and just hold that down for a second or two, it goes into what they call frequency search mode. So basically, if you've got an unknown radio or another two-way radio that you're not sure of the frequency of, and you want to try and capture it like a frequency counter almost, you can put this other radio nearby and transmit, and it'll try and grab the frequency and CTCSS or DCS tone from the other radio nearby, which is kind of an interesting little feature. It's in a lot of other Chinese radios too, but it was kind of like just tucked away in that side menu there, so I thought I'd give it a test as usual. So I've got this TID radio again here on 433.025, and it's searching the UHF band here as well, so it's going to try and grab the frequency from this radio, and it should come up on the screen of this one if everything works. Now what I discovered is it does filter depending on which frequency band you're wanting to capture. So UHF, if we press the hash key, it'll switch between VHF, it'll also go to 200 megahertz, 350 megahertz, then back all the way around to UHF there. So I'm going to leave this in UHF mode. I'm going to key up on this radio next to it, and in a second, hopefully, what we should see is, there you go, look, 433.025, and it says none underneath, which is correct, because basically this radio wasn't using CTCSS, but if it was, it would appear on the display down there. So time for a bit of a power test here. I have got the trusty SW33 Plus, the Shawcom power meter, and there is a little dummy load stuck into the top of here, so we're not actually emitting anything on the air while we're doing these tests, and that's going to give us the most accurate reading, hopefully. So basically, I'm starting on the 2 meter amateur radio band 145.000 on low power, and we're going to key down on this one and see what we get. And immediately we can see we've got 3.9 watts there, so nearly 4 watts just on the low power setting, which is pretty impressive. So it makes me wonder what it's going to do on the next setting up. So I'm going to change that over to the mid power range next, all being well, and here we go. Okay, so mid power coming up next, so same frequency on mid power. So let's see if we can get that to focus on the camera there, and boom, we're getting nearly 8 watts there on mid power. So I'd probably not want to run this radio much higher than mid most of the time, to be honest with you. 7.83 watts there. That's incredible, really, isn't it? So we're looking at nearly 8 watts on the mid power setting. So let's go up to the full maximum and see if I can get this to go on to high power. So finally, same frequency again on high power, and boom, we're getting 10.3 watts there on the 2 meter band. So nearly the quoted 11 watts power. That's a hell of a lot of power for a handheld transceiver. So you probably won't want to have that much RF next to your head for that long, but like I say, keep it either on low power or mid power. But you can see this radio does put out a fair bit of power down on the 2 meter band. So now we're going to do the power test on the 220 megahertz band, which obviously is of interest to people in the United States, the 1.25 meter band, as I believe it's called. So we're going to key down on that on low power initially, and here we go. Here's the Shawcom meter, and we're seeing 2.78 watts there. So nearly 3 watts, I would say, really, on the low power setting. But now we're going to put it into TX power on the mid range. Now this is interesting because I did this earlier on and I discovered something. That's now keying down on the medium power, and it's still showing very similar 2.72 watts. If anything, it's gone down a fraction from the low power there, but basically the same power level. So on the 220 megahertz band, the mid power setting doesn't seem to have any bearing. So we're just going to basically go back up to high power now and see what that one does. I'm going to key down again, and we can see there, hopefully, 4.5 watts as well. So we're getting 4.5 watts on the 220 megahertz band there. So that's a fair bit of power, really, though, considering some radios do struggle at that frequency. So finally, moving up to the 433 megahertz region, which is like your 70 SEMS area up here in the UK. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set TX power down to low again, and we can see we have got what we got there, 2.28 watts. So just over 2 watts on the low power setting on the 70 SEMS amateur radio band. And then we're going to try moving up to mid power in a second. I get there. Okay, mid power brings that all the way up to 4.75 watts. So just under 5 watts there on the mid power range, which is pretty damn good, I'd say. So that's working well. And finally, we're going to go up to the high power range, if I can do that. My hand's beginning to ache with this large radio here as I'm trying to film this one. So let's go and key down on that. And as you can see, we're getting about 8.2 watts, so about 8 watts on the high power setting there. So I'd probably recommend running on the mid power on all these frequency ranges, because it does give the optimum amount of power out there really without going too crazy, and it isn't going to make a lot of difference right up there. But as you can see, about 8 watts of power going out on the 77 amateur radio band. So I'm actually quite impressed with this radio. It's working better than I thought it would do. Certainly in terms of its power output, it really does seem to be making a bit of a difference there. So yeah, quite a chunky big radio. It has got the battery pack to run it and everything as well. So yeah, it could be used in a car as a mobile as well. You know, plugging it into a bigger antenna system would make it quite a powerful little mobile rig that you can take in and out, very portable and everything. But there you go, so that's your power test done. So let's take it out in the field and have a look at what I recorded earlier today with one of my friends who was doing the test, and you can see what the audio sounds like on this radio. And I'll give you a clue, it's surprisingly good. Right, we're up here on the Links golf course on the East Coast. Going to do a quick test back to my friend M0DPH, who's going to be listening out for me. I've just got a bit sheltered up here, it's got quite windy. So we're just going to try this UV-25, which I've got in front of me here. So yeah, let's give it a test, see what happens. M0DPH, G7 UFS, I believe you're standing by for me there, Paul. Hopefully you can hear me nice and clear on this Baofeng UV-25. Go ahead.
M0DPH, yeah, clear as a bell, clear as a bell. A tiny little bit of wind noise, but it's nothing, it's negligible. But, you know, lovely clear audio, cracking signal, M0DPH.
M0DPH, G7 UFS returning, yeah, okay, Paul. Yeah, sounding nice and clear yourself there. I believe, if you can tell everybody what you're actually using, I think you're on the Yaesu FT5D, aren't you? And are you using the Bluetooth headset with that radio? Go ahead.
M0DPH returning. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the FT5D. I'm down to 2 bars on my battery, but that's not to worry about. Get through this video. And yes, I've got the Bluetooth headset on it. And the audio coming from you is lovely and clear and crisp. And I trust my audio is getting the same to you. M0DPH.
Yeah, no problem, Paul. Yeah, you're coming in absolutely crystal clear to me. I've got the FT5D myself, and I need to set the Bluetooth headset up, so if my audio sounds half as good as yours, I'm going to be well impressed, Paul. But yeah, this radio is a beast. I mean, you'll see when you see the review on YouTube afterwards, but this is on mid-power, this radio, and I think I'm about maybe 4 or 5 miles from you at this location. About 7 watts going out of the antenna on 2 meters. This is the what they call the gooseneck antenna. Very strange looking thing. You remember the gooseneck microphones? Well, it's like one of those, but an antenna, and it does seem to work quite well on the 2 meter band. I've been receiving a lot of like shipping coming in on the marine band and everything, and some aircraft as well, you know, and it does seem to be pulling in quite nicely. But yeah, I do like the radio on the whole. It's quite chunky. It's maybe not for everybody. It's a very big radio, quite heavyweight really, but it does have that sort of good build quality, and for the sort of $50 price, you can't really knock it. I know that Jason has just picked one of these up as well for himself, so he was that impressed when he saw this review sample that he's asked me to get him one. So he's got the black version, I've got the camo one, which is I quite like the camo. They make a desert camo colour as well. But anyway, I'll hand it back to you there for your opinions on that. And I've also got a different antenna to try with it, because this one came with 2 different antennas. It came with this gooseneck antenna, and I've also got one of those tactical military antennas, the tape measure type ones. So what I might do in a second after you're next over is we'll swap over to that and see if there's any difference in the signal level there, Paul. Back to you.
M0DPH. Yeah, I take it the gooseneck antenna is one that you can contort into different sorts of shapes and whatnot. And I haven't seen one of them before. Interesting to have a look at one of them. And see what they look like. Well, he seems to perform well anyway. I can't fault his performance. M0DPH.
Okay, M0DPH, G7 UFS returning. Yeah, if you want to stand by just 1 second then, Paul, we'll switch over to the other antenna and see which one's actually better. I have a feeling this one might be better, but you could surprise me by telling me otherwise. We'll have to just see, won't we? But if you just stand by 1 minute, I'll just switch over then, Paul. M0DPH, G7 UFS. This is the tactical tape measure antenna, as I call it this time, Paul. Don't know how you're receiving this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. M0DPH, G7 UFS.
M0 signal strength is more or less the same as what the other one was. But audio and everything else is still the same. 0 dph.
Yeah, okay, Paul. Yeah, that's what I figured, really. Yeah, they're both decent, competent antennas, really. They're both quite nice with this. And I mean, they have to be pretty good antennas that are supplied with the radio, because I've done some power measurements and we're getting up to nearly 11 watts on 2 meters. I think it tops out about 8 or 9 watts on 70 sems. But yeah, 11 watts is quite a lot of power out of a radio like this. And there is a 5,200 milliamp hour battery as well. So it's got a nice big battery pack, so it's going to last a long, long time. During the couple of weeks I've had this radio, I've only charged it up 2 times, because that's how long the battery lasts, seriously. Even when you're having a good natter on it and everything. So it's been really, really good, Paul. But yeah, cheers for the test anyway. At least we know it's all working well. I mean, the audio coming from the set's absolutely superb. It's got a nice big speaker at the top of it there. I like it. It's quite chunky for the money. I mean, obviously it's not a Yaesu or anything, you know, we're not going to pretend it is or anything like that. But for the value for money factor, if you want a big radio with big output that you can sort of couple up in your car as well to double up as a sort of dual or tri-bander in the car, then, you know, it's pretty good. It also covers the 1.25 meter band, which obviously isn't available in the UK, but in America you can use the 200 megahertz band, can't you? It's 220 megs, isn't it, over there that they use? So they've got the extra amateur band, and it does actually work on those frequencies as well there, Paul. So yeah, I think it's, on the whole, it's a decent-ish package, and it's certainly the biggest Baofeng I've ever used, Paul, from G7 UFS.
0 dph, yeah, it's certainly a big chunky radio. But it's got, to be fair, it's got good chunky keys on it as well. So probably for the older generation, it'll be a lot easier to use and a lot easier for them to see the keys at the bottom, or anyone that's, you know, hard of sight or all like that. It would certainly benefit them, because obviously the Yaesus can be a little bit fiddly for stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely, Paul. Yeah, definitely. I know what you're saying. Yeah, good for anybody who's got sausage fingers like me as well. Fatter fingers to use the radios with. But certainly when you're out and about and everything, you want something rugged on the trails, or you want something that's going to last all day on the battery. If you're doing a bit of hill topping, I can see it appealing to a lot of people, really. Once the better weather comes and people are out there hill topping, doing a bit of DXing, you know, it's going to be one of them radios that comes into its own, really. And for the value for money factor, I mean, for, well, I think looking at the baofengradio.com website, you're looking at around £40-45 for one of these, all in, shipped by DHL. So to me, I don't think it's bad value for money, Paul. But anyway, I'll leave it there for now, since the weather's not too great up here. Very windy anyway. Mild air coming in. So we're having a bit of a better day, I suppose, in that respect. But yeah, quite windy. So I'm going to make a head back to the car park in a few minutes, and appreciate your time as always for testing this radio. And if you just hang fire for a few minutes, I'll stay on here and have a quick chat before you go then. So thanks very much, Paul, from G7 UFS.
Yeah, no problem, Simon. It's always a pleasure to assist you in your reviews and whatnot. So yeah, I can't fault that whatsoever. Beautiful bit of kit for what, you know, for what you pay for them. So 7 frames for now, and I'll hang about and when you finish recording, and we'll have a chat afterwards. M0 DPH, taking a standby.
Alright then, here's the section you've all been waiting for. This is about programming your UV-25. Now there isn't that much to say about this, because basically it's the same as every other Baofeng. All you need is a generic programming cable. I'm using one of these little 8-in-1 cables here with all the different ends on. So one of those would work sufficiently, or any existing lead that you've got for programming a Baofeng UV-5R. It just uses the K-type jack. So it's basically this one at the end of here. You can tell the one that I've been using the most, because it's beginning to fray at the end, and I'm hoping it doesn't fall off before the end of the program that I'm doing at the moment. But yeah, that's the only thing with these cheap cables. They don't last very long sometimes. But yeah, it's just one of those anyway that you want to pop into the side of the programming port on the radio. So if we just grab hold of the rig and just pop it into here like so. There we are, and that's going into the PC anyway. I'll just stick it over there on the desk. And you've got a choice, really. You can either use Chirp software, which is very, very good. That's the one that I always recommend. Or you can go to baofengradio.com and download the official CPS, and it's called T6UV, I think it is. But if you just go to Baofeng Radio's download page and just scroll down to the UV series, you'll see that there is actually a UV-25 on there, and that's the CPS software that you need if you want to use Baofeng Radio's own software. There isn't really much of an advantage over using that to Chirp, really. I mean, to be honest, if you've already got Chirp installed and you don't want hundreds of programs on your computer, then sometimes it's easy to do it this way. But if not, you could try both, really. I mean, like I say, just go down to Chirp, get the latest installer there. That's the one at the time of recording, that's the most current. That's going to be a pretty safe bet for doing this as well. So the choice is yours, really. But anyway, once you've done that, just make sure that you know the COM port number of your programming cable. The easiest way to do that is to go into Device Manager in Windows. I've already got it open here, and you'll see in this case I've only got one COM port connected, which is through USB-C. And there we are, it says USB serial CH340. That's just the vendor of my chipset in my particular programming cable, and it's showing COM3. So all we have to do is remember COM3 when we're looking at actually doing the programming. So if we just whiz that away, now we know it's all working. And I'll show you Chirp first of all. Anyway, Chirp's nice and easy. Just simply launch up Chirp as usual, and in a second or two we should get the programmer software up. And yeah, let's have a look at this. Here we go, finally appeared. Okay, so just go to radio, download from radio, and there we go, port COM3, which is the one we've only got on this machine. We've only got the one port on this, so it's nice and easy. And vendor, we need to change to Baofeng. So if we just go all the way up to the top of the list, and thank goodness for this, the UV-25 is actually on the list already. Here we go, there it is, UV-25, and it says it's the experimental driver, but we're fine with that. So make sure it's all connected, make sure the radio is powered up, and then just click OK and read, and OK that. And as you can see, it's really quick. Now I've already got a code plug with about 150, 200 frequencies in there, so it didn't take long at all. And basically this is the code plug that I've created. I've got some PMR frequencies for the UK in there, which is like your license free band, and I've also got all the 2 meter simplex channels. I've got some repeaters programmed in there, and I've put a load of marine frequencies in as well, so I can listen to shipping because I live by the coast, and a load of other stuff as well, including the default Baofeng frequencies that a lot of people are still using illegally in the UK. So it's interesting to have a listen on there. We've also got the American GMRS frequencies, because even though we're in Europe and in the UK, a lot of American radios end up over here, and you'd be surprised how many people are illegally using these type of radios, and we can actually listen to them. Basically, kids get them as walkie-talkies given as gifts by parents who've bought them off eBay and all kinds of other things like that, really. So it's quite surprising how many people are actually using them. And then I've got some UK light frequencies, which are like business radio frequencies over here as well. So that's my little code plug that I made up. Very easy to modify in here. If I go into settings, you can change every aspect of the radio, including the voice prompts, the beeps, the squelch level, the VFO. Obviously, the key thing that saves you a lot of time with things like Chirp is being able to type in frequency names instead of just leaving them as the default channel numbers, etc. So that's really good. But every aspect of the radio you can change inside there, which is really good. I found this rather curious inside Chirp as well. There is a bank section. I was hoping the radio would have memory bank management, but you can see there it says 1 to 10. But when I try tapping on any of these to try and reallocate the bank to a different number, I just get a message saying the radio has fixed banks and does not allow reassignment. And that was one of the downsides of having 1,000 memory channels in a radio like this, in that you can't manage them. You've got to scan all of them. You can turn it on or off for scan, for example, for a particular channel, but what if I only wanted to listen to PMR, or I only wanted marine, for example? I can't do that. I've got to scan the whole lot. It's all or nothing, really. So that's a bit of a shame, really, but there's hope in the future, maybe, if there's a firmware update which allows that to happen. But I found it curious that that was inside the Chirp driver that goes with this UV-25. But yeah, dead easy to work on anyway. Everything's just easy to click and edit, and you can import these from other radios too to save a lot of time as well, which is really good. So that's basically Chirp in a nutshell. Same as you've seen before, dead easy to use, I would say. And of course, we'll have a look at the Baofeng software as well. This is their CPS. So if we just head on over to here, it's the T6UV, which is this one here that I'm about to launch. This looks a little bit more basic than Chirp in some respects, and of course you can't import frequency information into it. So if you were building a code plug, you'd have to start from scratch. So I think for most people, chirp's going to be the best way to go, but let's just check the ports set correctly. Yeah, COM3, it's already set. So I'm just going to hit read over here on this software, and it's extremely fast. Just check this out. Looking at reading all those memories in, it must go at quite a good speed, really, quite a good baud rate on the USB. So yeah, all good. And there you go. That's the CPS software that Baofeng Radio supply, and it is used by some of the other Baofeng models as well. I have come across this software before. The T6UV is actually quite common. I've seen it on a couple of other models like the smaller Baofeng. So it's, as I said, this radio is basically a big Baofeng, but it's only big on the casing side of it. It's the same radio as the UV-25RH Pro, I think it is. It has a very similar display to this one, etc. So I'd imagine it's the same radio, but just this one's got some larger space inside the casing and everything. So as you can see, dead easy to operate. One thing that I did find curious about this is that you can set power level to high, mid and low, and that's something I forgot to mention in chirp. You can only set, the driver can only set high or low power. So if you want to run the radio at mid, as I recommend, I'd do your editing in chirp and then bring it into T6UV afterwards and set the mid power levels, because there's no way of setting it inside the chirp driver at the moment. I think once it's a beta driver, maybe they'll update it at some point, and that'll be sorted out. But at the moment, the only way to select mid power is either on the radio keypad itself or through the T6UV software. So yeah, dead easy to use. Again, all sorts of options in this one you can set. Nothing particularly exciting, it's just the basics as always. But functions, this is kind of interesting as well. A little bit better laid out than the chirp software, I'd say, but this is where you can set your things like your timeout timer, carrier scan mode. Everything's there again. Like I say, nice and easy to tweak. You can save this out into here and keep a copy of your code plug and edit it away, whatever you want to do. But that is basically programming this UV-25 in a nutshell, and as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. As regards sending data back to the radio, I'll just show you how quick it writes. I think it actually writes even quicker than it reads. Just watch this. It's incredibly quick, it really is. And to think you could manipulate 1,000 memory channels in no time, and there you go, that's it, they're finished. So basically that's it. It's dead easy to use, shouldn't be any issues with the CPS software down either route. So hopefully you found that quite interesting. Let's have a listen to the audio in my SDR and see what the sort of audio quality is like coming out of this Baofeng.
This is G7 UFS Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra, testing the Baofeng UV-25 for audio quality. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the Baofeng UV-25 on narrow FM mode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's try the test again on wide mode and see if there's any difference in the audio. Okay, this is Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra testing on the Baofeng UV-25. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, audio check. Baofeng UV-25 in wide FM mode. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra testing on the 2-meter amateur radio band.
Bravo and
Well, it's time for my conclusions on this radio, and what do I honestly think about it? Well, if you're in the market for a very robust and chunky, cheap HT, then this is probably the one to go for. If you're looking for amazing battery life, again, it's the one to go for. If you're looking for a reliable belt clip, it's probably not the one to go for. But seriously, that belt clip is terrible, and it needs a bit of a rethink or a redesign, I would say, really. That aside, one of the positive things about this is the massive battery life. And I mean, literally, I've had this radio literally 2.5 weeks since it arrived for review, and I've been testing it. I've had it on air quite a lot, and I've only had to charge the battery up twice, to be fair, and it's not gone entirely flat. So to be honest, I'm amazed at how long the battery lasts, and yeah, that's one of the reasons why the radio weighs so much, but it is in a very chunky, robust case, and anybody who likes the sort of military look will instantly enjoy using this type of HT. And perhaps somebody who wants to spend a whole day out on the hilltops doing a bit of DXing would be also appreciating this type of handheld, because they're not going to have to take extra chargers and batteries with them. It's probably going to last them all day, so that's something to consider. For a first radio, maybe even, I don't know. I mean, these things are very, very cheap, as you know, and the emissions on certain frequencies are questionable. I think this one's a little bit better on the 70-sems band. There are other videos out there that can show all that detail about harmonics and everything, which is always a controversial subject when we talk about cheaper Chinese radios. But on the whole, this one does everything well. It's got good audio on both transmit and receive, and that's what I liked about it, really. It was instantly likeable, and for the price of around $50, I think you're getting quite a lot of radio for your money, really, considering you're getting two reasonable antennas that are quite resonant as well, which ain't too bad. So yeah, it ticks a lot of boxes, I would say. Anyway, if you're interested, I'll leave the links in the description of the video, and you can make up your own mind about this one and whether it might be right for you. But I would like to say thank you very much for tuning into my channel each time I do a new video, and all the support you've given me over the past few years. And I'm hoping we can carry on doing this into the future. Obviously, I'd like to wish everybody out there a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year as well, because this might be one of the last videos I put out before the New Year comes in 2025. And hopefully we'll have a few more interesting bits and pieces to show you straight after the festive season. So with that, I'll say don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, and hopefully you guys will get some nice radio gear for Christmas as well, wherever in the world you are. So I'll leave it there for now, and I will catch you very soon. So 73's from Transmission 1 and the team over here in the UK. Cheers for now. Bye bye.